Live from the Talking Joe Studios. It's Talking Joe.
Talking Joe is on the air.
Whoa! Hello there. It's me, Mark. You just caught me reading my copy of After Action Report Volume 2, which is coincidental and not at all made up because we're talking to the team behind After Action Report Command Files, which is on Kickstarter right now. So, hello. Yes, I am Mark from Talking Joe. We are live at the time of recording, which kind of has to be the case. And today's episode will be sort of digging into the detail of the very latest volume of After Action Report. So I think without too much further ado, let's introduce the guys who will be joining us. We'll do it. Shall I do it all in one go for a change? Let's see if we can do it. I'm going to be clicking the fingers. So here we go. It's 1, 2, 3. We've got this direction, Greg. This direction, Hawk. And that direction, Roger.
Got the Brady Bunch thing going on.
I just want you to know I am pre-recorded as time of recording, so maybe some glitch.
We're going to have to be very careful to sync up, otherwise we'll be running into some real trouble. So let's have some introductions. So let's maybe start, Roger. You're one of the originators of the After Action Report. So let's hear a bit from you about sort of the blurb behind the project, if no one has ever heard of After Action Report before. Well, before we get to the others.
Long story short, it's been about 25 years in the making. I came up with the idea.
I could condense it.
Yeah, a little bit. I came up with the idea around 1999. Wanted to do a guidebook for all of G.I. Joe, everything that was ever made from 1964 to at the time 1999. International comics, figures, toys, everything. Pretty quickly realized that wasn't going to be possible because that would have been a volume about that thick.
Mm-hmm.
You can't fit all of it in one book. Eventually, after a long time, I decided, well, I'm never going to get it done as a full book. So how about just comics? And that's where we started. So now we're here. Now we're moving on to Command Files.
Excellent. Yeah, you're on your fourth book of the series, if I've counted correctly.
It's the fourth book that we've done, but it's not the last book we've done on comics. There's still more comics to do.
Absolutely. So your Volume 3 Kickstarter closed not too long ago for the IDW run of Larry Hama. Very much looking forward to seeing that one. It'll be a good volume.
Yes.
But this one is slightly different to what you've been doing before, and I think we've got Greg to thank for that. So let's bring you in to the forefront, and you can talk about this particular volume and where it all came about.
Sure. But first of all, let me first say that I'm just beside myself being on this podcast because I was a fan over the pandemic. You and Tim Finn were accompanying me on my lunchtime walks, just listening to Talking Joe podcast all the time. And now it's like in a matter of just seconds, I'm here talking to you. It's really weird for me. Matter of fact, I met Tim Finn, your co-host, your regular co-host at Assembly Required. And I introduced myself, and I was just really a little fanboyish about it. So geekish to me because anyway, this is just I'm still on. I can't process this right now. But anyway, my book.
That's great.
This After Action Report Command Files is, for all intents and purposes, for you Joe fans out there, it is my continuation of the Order of Battle. If you guys remember way back in the Marvel run, Marvel sanctioned almost a Marvel Universe type book, but for the Joe characters, which I was really jazzed about. What was cool is that it had these new artwork from Herb Trimp, and it also kind of ported over the file cards from the toy packaging, which is cool, a complete compendium. So for me, it was great because I couldn't get all the toys, but I loved all the characters. I just ate up everything that was in there. And from that point, as I expected more like Order of Battles, I didn't get any, but I went on, decided to say I want to make them myself. So I guess it was late 80s. I started to draw cards myself just to have them in my files. And then fast forward several years later, I got into kind of digital tools and things and wanted to design. And I was a Joe fan following along all the different publications of the property, all the different toy and cartoon iterations. And I started to see these out on Instagram, and it was about there you go. You got those are the file cards that I kind of did it myself, and you pulled it from my Instagram. Thank you very much. And that's actually where I started this project almost 10 years ago. I started posting these concept pages of what would happen nowadays if I did a new Order of Battle, and I plotted those, and then it was pretty much well received. And I realized I'm like taking a lot of time on this intro space, and when I get to Hawk, I got a lot more in that origin story. But let's put it at that. I just started to seed my idea out there, and over the past 10 years, fandom just said, "Hey." Now they kept on saying, "When can I get a book? Where can I get this real? Where it is?" And I'm like, "It's just a concept."
Right. Yeah.
Let me hand it off to Hawk.
Okay, so Hawk, how do you fit into this merry bunch?
I am the publisher, Rising Sun Comics, Rising Sun Publishing. So, so I was, the After Action Report brand is, I was working on, I'm a comic collector, G.I. Joe collector, obviously, and I was actually putting together my own PIP. So anyone who doesn't know what that is, that's picture-in-picture displays so that I could figure out the covers. And I was using Josh's Yojo, his Yojo articles in order to find out what that PIP would be. And all of a sudden, as I'm putting this together, Josh contacts me and he goes, "Hey, would you be interested in publishing a comic guide for comics?" He said, "Roger and I are working on a comic guide." And I'll be like, "Well, yeah, why? I was working on that. You guys already got it done. I'm in." So that's how Rising Sun ends up getting into this as the publisher. Obviously, we had got a very successful campaign. They did a wonderful job, and I think we were at right before Joe Fest. I think a few months. He goes, G.I. Joe really needs I think Josh had told me this. He goes, G.I. Joe really needs a character guide. You got to see this guy Greg's work. I think this would be worth getting into. So he sends it over to me, and I said, "Wait a second, I've seen this before. You know what? We need to do this." And off we are, off to the races. So that's how Rising Sun ends up getting into publishing After Action Report. And since then, it's been a wonderful, harmonious balance of working with these gentlemen. They've been fantastic. And as you can see, they put a fantastic product out. And you don't have to take my word for it. Just read those wonderful, wonderful reviews in that book. So I'll hand it back over to you and let you take it from there.
Absolutely. But Hawk, I wanted to ask, because every time I see your name appear up there on internet land, I wonder to myself, how long have you been called Hawk? Have you been Hawk since day zero of your life, or has this happened somewhere in between then and now?
All right, so I am Amasquath, so I'm actually Native American as part of it. The name Hawk belongs to my great-grandfather and his great-grandfather before him. So it's an ancestral name that was given down. It actually means quite a bit. First names mean quite a bit in at least in my culture. So I've had it since birth. My grandmother named me that in order to honor my great-grandfather. And it carries a lot of weight and a lot of responsibility. And I sure hope that I've lived up to it, as it's gone through. So, yeah.
Because there's this thing called, and you've probably heard of this, nominative determinism, where your name determines the point, the life, the direction of your life to some degree. So like more people called Dennis end up being a dentist, for example. So has has GI Joe and the leader Hawk sort of played a special, part in your life because of that link to GI Joe?
My first 3 3/4 Joe was actually Snake Eyes, 82 version, and I found him in a couch. Someone lost their 82 Snake Eyes in a couch, and I remember, this was the 80s. I mean, safety wasn't really that much of a concern. So we loaded this couch into the back of a pickup or a transport, and me and my sister, who couldn't have been no more than 6 or 7 years old, were riding on the back of this couch in a truck while we took it home. And it was a used couch, obviously, and we're digging around hoping to find change. And what do I pull out? An 82 Snake Eyes. I think I got my money's worth. What do you think? I think I got better than change. So I didn't even know Hawk was a part of the line until probably 86. And then I saw they had a Hawk figure, and I was like, oh, what? Of course. I didn't have the comics. My first comic was like 109, 103. So it was much later. The cartoons had a big influence, and obviously finding that 82 Joe was in there. There was another one in there, Torpedo, but I think now that I think back on it, there was a head in there. So my Torpedo didn't have a head; it was decapitated. It was a prisoner of war. It was a rough day for poor Torpedo. So I had this head of and I think now thinking back on it, I think it might have been actually Hawk. Looking back on it now, I've got the head somewhere. I'll have to pull it out. It was either Hawk or a Grand Slam. Anyway, I decided the bright idea that I needed another GI Joe action figure, so I melted the head and glued it onto my Torpedo. So I had at least 2 figures. Regardless, the head fell off a lot. So he was constantly decapitated in my war battles. So, I don't know if it was just simpatico, but I really didn't know about Hawk probably till 86, and I was pretty deep into it at that point.
Very good. Excellent. And so we've, I think, all got sort of long roots back into the G.I. Joe property. Roger, what was it for you that sort of made the big connection with Joe? How old were you, and what was it that did it?
I would have been 9. It was G.I. Joe #1. It was because my dad, he was in Vietnam, and he dealt with his Vietnamese experience by reading war stories, and he thought G.I. Joe would be a hardcore, gritty one that he could get into. It wasn't. But he looked at it and went, oh, this is for kids, and handed it to me, and I loved it. It wasn't what he was looking for. He was looking for Sergeant Rock and Conan decapitations and stuff like that. But it worked for me, and that was my first experience. Star Wars was my big thing at the time, and I begged my parents to get more G.I. Joe stuff, or any G.I. Joe stuff. And they didn't want me to, but that Christmas, Grandma came through, and she got me almost the entire collection all in one day. So it was pretty much cemented it from that point. So
thank you, Grandma.
Yeah, thanks.
So yeah, from day one. Excellent.
Yep, absolutely.
Stuff.
And before that, I did have some 12-inch Joes that I didn't realize were G.I. Joe at the time. I figured it out probably within the first year, but at the time, I didn't know I already had G.I. Joe.
And Greg, what was your first comic, first action figure?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, experience with G.I. Joe, it was around when I was 10. I had a neighbor, a classmate down the street that his parents got him all sorts of toys. He had Masters of the Universe, Transformers, Thundercats, if you name it. And then one day I was visiting him, and I saw these 4-inch army men that had cool code names and cool vehicles. There was a Vamp, I remember, and I was like, dude, I want to get on this. This is really cool. This is different than that Star Wars stuff that was lasers and spaceships. And I asked my mom about grabbing some G.I. Joes, and she ordered me from the Sears catalog those 3-packs. So my first Joes are Flash, Grunt, and Rock and Roll, and then Snake Eyes, Scarlet, and Stalker. and they were the straight arm kind. So at the time too, they weren't the ones with the card backs, but they were in the box with the, I guess, the red cards, I guess, if I recall correctly. And that's where I fell in love with the file cards at that point too, because I had all this backstory to play to base my adventures on. And then I got into the cartoon before I got in the comic. I do remember seeing in my comic store, I had a comic store like a half block away from my house, but back then I was into like X-Men, Marvel Mutants, but I did remember seeing G.I. Joe #1. I think it was already on the wall, one of those wall books that were kind of pricey already, but I got into the cartoon first, and then I didn't get into the Joe comic book until like 48 or 49. I guess the Battle of Springfield, that first one. And then I got hooked on that special missions with that special deluxe size issue in number 50, I think. Yeah. So yeah, got into there as well.
Excellent. And it sounds like, yeah, from day one, then that was the file cards had this special connection for you, and then was mind blown when you saw Order of Battle as a series.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was not only like the story, the background, it put some personality to these plastic figures, but also just the technical part of it. Like they had grade ranking, so you're able to know the command structure, if you will, of the characters. You knew what weapons they were qualified for, and you knew what schools they went to. And then they had these psychological profile assessments. I mean, well, that was really deep stuff. And then all this jargon that I wanted to know more about, that made them more real, I guess, to me. Well, that totally fascinated me.
And so you put together the like these little things, the little version of you was drawing them in pencil and creating your own file cards, then progress a few years, the older version of you was doing slightly more oh, there we go, let's make you a full screen.
Well, full screen. Yeah. I have like 28 of these cards that I just put on binder paper, and on, I think some of them are like a cereal box cardboard that I pasted these on.
We should reprint those and make them a stretch goal.
Sorry?
We should reprint those and make them a stretch goal.
Oh, I want to do that. Hey, Hawk, do we have a printing facility to like do mass?
I'll make it happen. Let's do it.
That sounds great.
And
then so you, the older version of you, which was it like? Did you say you sort of started on this about 10 years ago, sort of putting together the? Yeah,
if you go way back in my Instagram, I posted my first one. It was a Hawk. It was Gung Ho, and I was actually kind of imitating like one of the Star Wars encyclopedias back then, and it said that this is what I want like the guide to look like, and it was February 15th, 2013. So if you go back to when we started this Kickstarter, it was February 14th, 2023. So almost to the day, 10 years later, this book's getting actualized.
And at what point of that process did you think, maybe this isn't just something I'm doing for fun. Maybe I can actually get this out as a printed, product, or into more as a physical thing rather than just Instagram posts.
So one of the things in 2022, as I started that year, I went through like my goals for the year. I wanted to see what was possible. And one of the things I wrote down was try to figure out how to make this book real. I mean, up until that point too, remember in that past 10 years, I've done iterations of these files. I've done every character. I've done like over almost 200 or so characters. I've even done Cobras. And I said, is there a way I could actually make this a book just for myself? So I went in there and saw how cost prohibitive it was just to go, just ask for one book. Or actually, I couldn't do just one, but I had to like order like 25 books, which is a huge thing. But I think when it really saw something real happen was, and you're part of this origin story, Mark, is that I did. it's funny, yeah. You have a cameo in this. I started to plot these pages on different forums like His Tank and Reddit and the Facebook forum, the comic Facebook forums. And I there was one time in July I posted kind of one of those digital books. I posted maybe like a dozen or so on this platform that set up the pages as if you were like flipping through a real book. I posted in one of the comic forums, and it was a sampling of different characters. I think I had Flint, Lady J, Hit and Run, Mainframe, all the familiar names, Ripcord. And then a lot of folks jumped on there, say, "When's it real? Can I download it? What's going on?" This is a huge response. And one of them was a particular Mark Seaton, who called out that page. It says that because in what I posted had a character called Static Line, which is from the Sky Patrol, some really like obscure character, and you called that out in there. It said that I guess something to the effect of, at least some people have their favorites, and I didn't know at the time that was you. I was talking Joe. But that was cool to get that acknowledgement. And then later down that thread, Josh comes in there and says, basically called my book the child of After Action Report, the stepchild of Carson's 3D Joe's project. And I'm like, whoa. And he even tagged Carson. I was like, whoa, what's going on here? And then once blew up. They want to go here saying Josh saying you want to do something. And in my side conversation with him, he discovered that I actually had done almost like 200 characters. The book's the profiles are done pretty much. And we decided to jump on it. And I think there's a behind the scenes stories with Roger when Josh brought it to the team's table, a
little bit.
Go on, Roger. Do you want to jump in? Where did it get on your radar, and what was the story from your point of view?
Almost a year ago, I was quite sick. No COVID. Don't worry about COVID. Got diabetic ketoacidosis and the shingles on the same day. It was the day after MegaCon when we were promoting our book. So I was in recovery from that. Pretty much had spent three solid months in bed. And out of the blue, Josh messages me and says, "So we're going to do this book with a guy named Greg." And I was like, okay, who's Greg? Had no clue. I mean, no idea what the project was, no idea who Greg was. And it was just like, okay, I guess we're doing another book. Okay, I'm going back. So it was like another 3 months before I was lucid enough to actually start participating. So, but yeah, I was completely out of it when this whole thing started, and no clue what was going on at the time. Still under drugs, still in a lot of pain, still in bed. So, and
yeah, because I mean, watching from the sidelines, it was, I think, not too long after the Volume 2 Kickstarter went sort of live that kind of you got knocked sideways. But so it's amazing that it's sort of the team came together and it's was backed, and it it's plowed on through, and it's a great book, and so I'm really glad that all of that sort of didn't impact your project. That you're still able to be make it a success between across the team. So
yeah, well, getting that book done while you're sick, wow, that was not easy. Josh came down to Florida, and we spent, the two of us, while I was sick, a month in a hotel room. He would come and pick me up at my house every day, and we'd sit in the hotel room for about 8 hours. And my vision was horrible because of what I was going through, and I was literally up like this at the screen, going, "Okay, I think we need to change that." And we need to change that. So it was a arduous month of getting things set down in the final days, final weeks.
Yeah, and I've got to say it's great to see you looking so well, because I think the whole community seeing you get knocked sideways like that was we all felt for you. So great to see you back in action.
Yeah, he's looking pretty good now. I think
this eye is still hurting and blurry, but it's still working. So I'm about 80-90% of what I used to be.
So we've not.
I was going to say he's looking
we've not
pretty
actually
good
talked
now.
too much.
We can get him in the Joe Fest fashion show.
So we've not talked too much actually about the Kickstarter. So if you Google Kickstarter After Action Report command files, it will come up. You'll find it. And so maybe who wants to talk us through the Kickstarter itself and how it's all working? So it's still got a few days to go. 15th of April, quite a long way to your goal. It's a little bit over 19,000 out of 25,000. So given the way that Kickstarter has the lumps of an initial bump and then one at the very end, looks pretty healthy to me. But tell me about the Kickstarter itself and what we can expect to see in volume 1.
Well, who wants to take it? Hawk, you haven't talked much.
Okay, I'll talk through. So this our Kickstarter campaign here. This is the after action report command files. It's going to be, I believe, 144 pages. Is that what we're set at, guys?
Yeah, we're shooting for the same amount for each book.
So it's going to cover through. It's going to cover through a various amount of characters. All of these will be G.I. Joe characters at this point. There'll be a couple double page spreads in here on key characters itself, and what the double page spreads will cover. And as you can see here, it's going to give us a primary of a character. It's going to give it their rank, their MOS. It's going to give us a brief on the character, as well as going to give on these double page spreads. It'll give us an incarnation of every media that they've been in, not every action figure, but every piece of media that they've shown up in. So it's really this is intended to get a really broad view of the character case, because G.I. Joe is so full of so many characters, and there's many people that come to this and they really. They get a little lost in this. So I thought that this was a wonderful project for even a beginner to get in on G.I. Joe and its character case, and how you can really get them through and help explain to anyone what the characters are. It's a great coffee table book, so you can leave it on your coffee table as a talking point. You got company over, they might be able to pick it up. Oh, I remember this guy. I hated that guy. How could he be a so there's many different points for it. So I think that, as you can see, it's going to be a very visual book in its setup. So I think that at this point we're pretty close to done. We've got a few surprise elements we're working on in the background, but overall, I think that Greg's got most of it done. Like you said earlier, I think we're about 85.
Actually, I want to report in that last night I completed the last page of porting over the profiles into the deck. So there's a couple more framing stuff done, but yeah.
There you go.
Live, we're having a group meeting right now. I'm recording. Check done.
Good job.
While we're here, let's go over the budget again.
But I do want to kind of hitch onto what Hawk was saying about these kind of 2-page spreads. It's pretty cool in terms of kind of doing it's almost looking like you showed the Duke one, the 2-page spread for one character. It's showing each variation or interpretation of characters throughout the years. It gave almost like a tribute, if you will, to in the past 40 years what the different media projects and the different interpretations of comic writers of each character would go. And I think it needed to that kind of approach or kind of review needed to go somewhere physically, especially for old school Joe collectors. And I thought that's just a nice touch to hit on. So some of the key characters that get this treatment are obviously Flint, the Lady Jays, Shipwreck, Roadblock, Tunnel Rat. Those are a couple on top of mine because I finished those recently. I think overall, as Hawk was saying, it's an overall general piece. People ask me when I say they're doing a character guide, what continuity is it? And I struggled with that answer because my first kind of response is these are kind of the baseline essentials of the character, the essence of the character, the fundamentals, if you will. That's the springboard to all these other cartoons and movies and so forth. And then I thought about, as I was working, the continuity really is like the original file cards where they came from, because that's where the content does come from. Just like the order of battle, the history, the service record, the background comes from the file cards. And then visually, we expand on that story by providing all the different snippets, views from screenshots from Valor versus Venom as an example, or Resolute, or the Hasbro Universe version of IDW continuity, just to represent those. But just to say that all these, if you will, to use a current term, all the multiverse of versions of I say Flint spawns from this one character card.
And yeah, it must be, given the amount of content that exists for all of these characters, it must be hard to say, okay, this is going to be the main image, and these are going to be the other featured images. Like just looking at this one, for example, Blizzard. Like you must be thinking, "Oh, should I say something about like Tiger Force Blizzards?" Or which.
Actually, I do address that, and I think, and hats off to Hawk for calling that out. If you see that, and I probably not easily seen in the screenshot here, but if you see the little light blue box on the bottom, that's actually serves as a footnote, and there I capture kind of the running changes of the character. If their military specialty changed over the years or their grade, I would note that on there, and then also note the detachments. If this character was on Night Force one year or Tiger Force another year, I'd put that just as a nod to those iterations that happen in the action figure world. And also just to show my homework, because I make some decisions on like what grade I'm going to represent for this character in this file. There's a kind of what's the bibliography, if you will, on that.
Excellent. And yeah, so the sort of in terms of the look of these pages of what's included, do you want to walk us through about what the different colored boxes will typically cover?
So just give you a little tour of these. So as you can see, the kind of general overall color background, I pulled directly from the original file card, so that beige manila folder look. And then you see the white space. It's basically those who collect the toys. It's from the blueprints you'd get with every vehicle and vehicle and plane or boat. And in terms of capturing the character's file name and grade and birthplace and so forth, I put this in this neat little ID card, common access card. These are the government issue, and some folks probably recognize a little part of it. I took that element in there because later on in the toy line, I think in the early 2000s, right around the Pursuit of Cobra, or when the movie came out, the toy line, they changed the file card format to this kind of ID card format. So I kind of borrowed from there to represent here. Along the left-hand side of, if we're going to follow Sub-Zero, you'll see that I pulled pictures from the cartoon which he's represented. I don't believe he's been in the comic book other than the kind of all-in cover that they had in the Devil's Due line, World War III montage, and then he's probably in Jamie Sullivan's like massive piece that he recently did. But overall, I think most general public will probably know this character Sub-Zero from the cartoon. So as you see there, the content again is from the file card, and then on the bottom under the main illustration is the kind of profile quote, personality, a psychological profile. And then the very bottom is something that bank of numbers there. That's something I introduced in this guide. It always fascinated me, particularly like in Transformers, they had these specs or stats that they'd rank that character property with, and also all the way back to the Marvel Universe Handbook. And also some of the Marvel cards that came out, they'd had these statistics for or skill ratings, if you will, for characters. So I thought, let's introduce this for G.I. Joe. So I went ahead and put my interpretation of a character's weapon skills, their close quarter combat skills, medical, intelligent, etc. So I kind of quantified them there. Again, it's my fun interpretations. The green boxes that you see there are kind of the highlights of this guy's main skill, or weapons and Arctic warfare, as just to call it just a quick visual cue there.
You could turn the
Yeah.
book into like a top trumps game almost using that.
Yeah, right. There is a little bit of game kind of structure to that, or my thought is it could be used as that. I haven't seen the Renegade Studios deck building game, but I love to see that, how the mechanics kind of measure up. But it's in that vein, to have that kind of system set up. And then I think I skipped one thing. There's under the ID card there's these bubbles there, and those are actually another thing that I've upgraded, if you will. I've taken the military specialties that you'd normally see in the file cards, and I kind of upgraded them in a sense. I've modernized them to those definitions of military occupational specialties you'd find today. So as an example, a lot of the toys that you get would have the characters would have infantry as their primary military specialty, which is kind of blah. Look, in today's world of special ops and special forces, the military.
Did we lose him?
Oh, I think we've lost Greg. We've got
in the perfect moments too.
Oh yeah, we had you frozen on a Blair moment.
Are we back?
You're back.
That's wonderful.
You're back.
All right, cool. So the military specialties that I have there, I've upgraded them in terms of modernizing them for today. So normally back in the regular army, conventional army, they'd be ascribed infantry, but for special operations folks, there's a new military specialty. As an example, an infantry soldier would actually have the in the army, they would have the military specialty special forces weapons sergeant, or a combat medic would have special forces medical sergeant, or so if you had an EOD background, it would be engineer sergeant. So I went ahead and reflected those in there. But again, to kind of keep a nod or just kind of frame what I've did properly, I have in those light blue boxes the footnotes, if you will, so you can kind of see the logic to how I arrived to those redefinitions, if you will.
And I want to interject in there real quick. So the military changes, or the U.S. military changes its rank quite a bit. They every so often they actually go through a shuffle where they will change up how things rank. So updating this system to reflect something a little more modern, I think was unnecessary, and I think that Greg has done a great job by leaving those footnotes, calling back to what its original rank would have been in a military previous. If you look at some of those file cards, actually, some of them rank back to Vietnam rankings, and then some of them are upgraded into Desert Storm, military ranks. So having kind of a neutral line along it, I think it actually helps the team overall.
And how many profiles have we got in total across the book, and how did you decide what to include, what to leave for later?
Yeah, that's a good question. So in total, I'm tracking to about 240 character profiles just for G.I. Joe. For the first book, though, we couldn't cram all 240 into one book, and at 144 pages, it's running to about 120 characters. The scope or the set that that we plotted against were those that were produced as figures. So if it had a figure, there was a file card. So I use that. Although won't be surprised to see some characters maybe in the next volume that didn't have a toy but deserved a file card. I mean, you already flash Molto on there, so you see that was done already. So I got to have that included in there. But overall, yeah, we're running about 120 for the first volume and 120-ish for the second volume. And
what's going to be the end goal? How many volumes do you think they're going to be in total for this?
Oh, I think we've actually put it in writing that I'm on tap for a third volume that'll include Cobra. in there. So following those lines, don't ask me to do vehicles because that's not my wheelhouse.
Oh no! So we've got a gap. So Roger and Josh are going to be
somebody
looking,
else. Yeah,
looking for the vehicle guy.
Yeah.
Excellent. So why don't you tell us about the pledges? How
if
the
I may, Mark,
Kickstarter's all going to? Oh, sorry. Go.
Sorry, Mark. If there's one other kind of new thing on the book before we go on that, just want to set expectations. Unlike the order of battle, which the characters are in alphabetical order, this particular book handles them differently. As I said, I looked at individual specialties and areas of expertise for these characters. And what I've done in this book is group them in particular teams. So I mentioned Sky Patrol earlier. So Sky Patrol is all going to be in one team, represented all the airborne, what they call the military free fall detachment. There's going to be a mountain team, Arctic warfare team, a desert team, etc. And I grouped those in that particular piece, and they're not in alphabetical order. It served two ways. It added to what Hawk was mentioning, a little more modernized look to it, because one of the things I explored was, what does the actual command structure of G.I. Joe looks like? How did they deploy in real life? So I took the military specialties and plotted against say how a real special forces company works in real life. So I took that tact with that. And then the other reason why we did it this way is, if we did alphabetical order, you wouldn't see Snake Eyes and Scarlet until volume 2. And I'm sure people wanted to see the key ones up front. And, so that kind of narrative, I guess, about these groupings and this exploration is going to be framed by what I've created. It was a mock Senate subcommittee report to Wendy Ling Torres, who you may recall is the chairperson of the Oversight Committee of G.I. Joe. So anyway, that's a little other adder that I put to this book in terms of a context, a paratextual context for how this book's approached. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, she seems like a suspicious kind of character. I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah. That's why I'm going to intimate that this is a mock report. It could be like it could be a deceptive warfare tactic, throw it off just to because I think one of her aides was a Crimson Guardsman, right? So yeah, a little psych out, fake out. Yeah. Anyway,
Roger, do you want to do the briefing on the Kickstarter of what the different tiers are and what you can get if you back this thing?
I'll try. Let me get it on my screen so I can scroll down with you. Let's see. You can order. I'm not as well versed on this as Josh is, unfortunately. He put it together. So if you want to just order the book, that's certainly the first tier. That is let me get down here. $44 to get you the book. That's just nothing else. It's just the book and whatever stretch goals we end up getting. More than that, you can get. Yeah, I'm sorry. Uh-oh. Somehow I hit print.
Oh dear.
We needed a print of that. That's good.
Yeah. Okay.
The next one along is a signed copy, I think, for $50.
That sounds right. Yeah, there's so many on here. I'm trying to scroll down to the next one that makes sense to talk about.
A map.
Yeah.
Okay,
here we go. Yeah, $50 for a signed print. That'd be Greg and I guess both of all of. Is it all of us or is it just Greg on this one? I'm not really sure. Let's see. And then 54 gets you the command files and the A-Team's map. That's the location, kind of the world map of where everybody's stationed.
Can we show that map? Do we have can we show that map?
It's
somewhere
in the
there,
Kickstarter somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah,
What that is, I actually have this in the book. And as Roger says, deployment. So in the teams that I've assigned in the book, these are the A teams, if you will, assigned in the different areas of the world. So everywhere from Trucial Abysma to Sierra Gordo, it's plotted there. Yeah. and it also gives you a good context framework again of how the teams are grouped. So it's up front in the book, so it gives you a cool summary of, hey, I want to see where Sky Patrol's at and who's on a team. So you can flip to that page.
And higher tiers, you can get the After Action Report bookmark. That's the metal bookmark we came out with for the last book, but you can add it to this one.
Yeah.
You can get both with the book and the map and the bookmark, and at $74. And let's see, 2 copies, of course, if you want to get one for a friend. That's always an option. And then we have the exclusive leather bag. It's a leather book bag that kind of the idea here is that you can put all our volumes in one book bag, and if you're at a convention or something and need the reference, you can carry it around that way, and a nice handy book bag. And it's a high quality book bag with our logo on it, so it's a pretty nice piece. And that's
fancy.
We haven't fully decided yet, but that will probably include some other extras on top of that. So you'll get the book and some more stuff that I don't think we've announced it anywhere else. But
goodie bag.
Yeah. So
excellent. And speaking of announcements, you have recently announced or shown or shared shared the draft cover by Mark Pennington.
Correct.
Which, looks to feature a grand lineup of a whole bunch of characters. See Hawk on the right, and I think that's Rock and Roll in the middle on the left.
Yeah, I think it is Rock and Roll. I think that's supposed to be Rock and Roll. Was
there much debate about who to go for on the cover for this one?
We basically didn't want anybody that wasn't in the book. So there is like Storm Shadow is on here, and he's not going to be in this volume. He's going to be bumped to the second book. But it was primarily who was in the book, and then we started with like a top 10 list of what Greg wanted for the cover.
Yeah, actually, you gave me a ceiling of 30 characters, and it was so hard. It's hard to put favorites on there. Seriously, I had to leave some favorites off that list to hand them to Mark to look at.
He's past the 30, so he's past the 30.
Yeah, it's past 30, right?
Yeah, and I think he's going for as many as he can from the sounds of it.
Yeah, he does have the master list.
Yeah,
he was gracious enough when he to engage us on this project. He gave us like 6 fantastic layouts, concepts to go from, and this is the one that shown the most. But it was awesome to have him kind of engage with our project, and so excited to actually throw out so many different ideas at us. And I'm really jazzed to see where this is going to go.
You've been really lucky, or make your own luck, but you've been really lucky with your cover artists for the book. Rod Wiggum, perfect artist for the original ARA run. Josh Blaylock on the front and Tim Seeley on the back of Volume 2, really representing the Devil's Due era. Larry Hammer, kicking it out the park on Volume 3. Awesome callback to some of the highlights of his run with the LLRP team. And this one, Mark Pennington, who might not, be an instant kind of one to think of, because he's been, a little bit more in the background of the scenes, designing a key chunk of the run. But I think, Carson's work that he's been doing on 3D Joes and with the Operation Recall has really sort of, put him in much more in the forefront of people's minds, or sort of realize the contribution that he's been able to make to G.I. Joe. And so was it just kind of on the back of that you sort of went to Mark, seeing that recent work that he's been doing? Or
somewhat. I mean, we already had somewhat of a connection with him with Carson. I'd already met him a few times at shows, and he's actually pretty local to me. He's only about an hour and a half away from me. Not that I've been to his house or anything, but he's, it's convenient if we do need to meet up or anything like that. So I knew he was, from my previous meetings with him, I knew he was pretty open to this sort of project. So I contacted him, and he was like, absolutely, I'm on board. So he took right in. It didn't take any real convincing. There was no problem with it. It was a 5-minute conversation, and he was on with it. So just
And,
asked
you
for the details and started off.
And to talk about this just a little bit, we really wanted to show, kind of it was a choice to kind of show the magic, because there is some magic when pencil goes to paper and the design process starts to unfold, and there's this beautiful elegance to everything as it begins to swirl together. So as you can see in these pencils, they're still a rough pencil form. They're not really tight yet. They're really not defined. So we're trying to show people, kind of pull that veil back a little bit. Here's Mark Pennington making magic for you, right?
Yeah, and we always want the cover art to be relevant to both the community and the book itself. We didn't want to just grab some no-name artist and tell them to draw a G.I. Joe cover. We want somebody that actually had a hand in designing these characters. So we always try to get something to focus on for the relevance.
Also of note, this is a wraparound cover too, so it'll be a beast of an artwork.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, one large image.
Excellent stuff. We got Justin chiming in, approving on your updates. MOS and stat updates are an excellent call. So
yeah,
another
seal
bag
of approval.
Yeah, there are a lot of 11B links, and actually, I didn't stumble upon those codes. They didn't introduce those until much later on the file cards, where they started to identify. And I don't know off the top of my head what a combat medic was, or like a communications person was. They started to sprinkle it in as if the Hasbro writers did that, purposely just to bring more realism in there, but they didn't do it very consistently. So through my investigation, I just wanted to figure that out, and I actually do call those out in the book. So if it was a Special Forces Communication Sergeant, I do call out 11D or whatever the 18D or whatever that code was assigned. I even go down to special qualifications of airborne or airborne ranger. Those things are called out there as well.
I was just going to say that in the one of the most recent updates on your Facebook page from Josh, he was talking about a new kind of addition, which is just lost it. The sort of Millerverse sort of add-on handbook. Are you able to talk a little bit about that as a new addition to the campaign?
I think you should take this one, Hawk. You're most versed in it, I think.
Okay, certainly.
Yeah.
So, the Millerverse is actually, we had finished the Millerverse, and for those of you that don't know, Rising Sun does comic books. We've been doing comic books for a while, G.I. Joe fan related content and many different things. The Millerverse printed over 55 issues. That was a combined story that tapped into the Devil's Due universe and continued on World War III and made it a much bigger frame. So what happened is, after we've completed the run, we had so much extra content. There was so much that was created. The Millerverse comes from Jamar Miller, who started the series, and then I finished it off in the last few years. And it kind of takes you through a combined universe long before IDW ever gets to the combined universe. We did it first. And this is all of the profiles that we had from creating those books, and we've combined them into it. So you get profiles across the entire gambit. There's even some profiles that people have never seen before in there. So it's going to cover a large swath of it. There are 6 volumes, and I think the most common question asked with these is, how are they going to be released? We're going to release 2 with each volume of command files. So you can get 2 here now, then you'll be able to get 3 and 4 with volume 2 of command files, and 5 and 6 with volume 3 of command files. So you can start to kind of accumulate them up. These are going to be 36 pages. It's pretty much all profiles. So it's complete set profiles with a character and a breakdown of how they're involved. Baron Ironblood is included. We have the Red Shadows. We have obviously tons and tons of characters that are showing up in the book. And because that's a Hasbro combined universe, it also covers some mask elements, several different entities that tied into that. I believe General Blitz is in there, so there's some extreme stuff. So it really was a combining of all the Hasbro universes together to tell that story. If you're looking for those books, obviously, and I'm going to shameless plug here. So if you're looking for those books, you can find them on risingsuncomics.com. You can go to our store and you can find some of the Millerverse books there. We're slowly trickling them out, but you can just click there and it'll take you off to our publishing store, which houses everything that we published over the years. And so we thought that this was a great way to really get our Millerverse fans connected, and it's so much related to the Command Files content that we thought that this was a great way to get the two plugged together, right? We've never released this. This is brand new. Some of the content did show up in the back of the books, but there's some exclusive content that's going to be in those there as well. And it's a lot. When I first started, they asked me, "Hey, do you have anything that we could put toward this?" And I thought, well, maybe. Let me see. I think I could maybe do 2 books. After I put it down, 6 books. Wait a second. Hold on. Why didn't I think of this before? So that can be done as an add-on. Once you actually back the project, that is an add-on that you can attach afterward. And you can attach both of them there. I think you can get as many copies as you want to plug in. Can we, did that answer your question, Mark?
Yeah, I think so. So just the mechanics of how to order this thing is once you backed it, there'll be an add-on option to add it into, I guess, the pledge. So that's the kind of the mechanics of how to add this thing on should you want to get it. And 2 volumes per volume of the After Action report. So by the time we've had 3 volumes of After Action reports, Command Files, there'll be 6 of these profile books. So a big old combination of books there by the time we've got it.
I think we've talked about this, and I think I'm okay with discussing it now. Hopefully we are, Roger. If not, just smack my hand and tell me no, bad. So we've talked about the exclusive bag, about that being an all-in tier. Because the bag is such a high-end item, it's a very, very high-end item. It's high index leather. It's an embossed logo. It's meant to be like the kind of the pinnacle. And we thought, as a GI Joe collector, and an Action Force collector, we have a lot of things. What do we really need next? And I thought, well, we need something just a little more primo, a little more prime. So I think that with this add-on, you're actually getting everything. I think everything's going to be included with it. All the add-on, everything is going to be stuffed into the bag. I think that's what we've discussed. I think that announcement is going to go out at some point. If I'm wrong, Roger, please. I
think it just did.
There we go. Okay, there you go. An exclusive right here on Talking Joe.
Breaking.
Very good.
Breaking news. So
nice.
We're excited for these. When we first put it together, I thought, well, I don't know if this is really going to be for our crowd. I know that we're all getting older and we want nicer things and things like that. But after getting it together, it's like, man, this thing is nice, really, really nice. So now I think we're all bucking for one. On the team, we're like, we kind of want this for ourselves.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. But
suddenly the process of putting this project together has got a whole lot more expensive for you because you want to get the top tier items yourselves. So excellent. So I guess is there any sort of concluding thoughts or things that you want to kind of talk about the project that we've not yet brought up?
Well, I'll mention that in 2 weeks, me and Jeff, this is pretty well solid now. Last podcast I was on, it wasn't solidified yet. me and Josh will be in Chicago at Toy du Jour, along with Tim Seeley and Josh Blaylock and Sam Wells, to autograph our books and their books. So that'll be April 8th in near downtown Chicago. I think he's a little north of downtown Chicago. And that's what we'll be doing, is autographing books all day at a cool toy store.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Yeah.
So anything else from you, Hawk? Do you want to any last plugs, things to make sure that we know?
I was actually supposed to be in Toylanta right now, so I apologize for anyone that's watching this. I was supposed to be there. I had some last minute problems, vehicle issues, so it kind of kept me away from it. But obviously, I want you to go to After Action Report, and if you don't have volume 1 or 2 of the Comic Collector's Guide, get them. They're really, really good. They're good stuff. It's good stuff. And then obviously we need your help. Back us with command files. We want to see this series. We want to see this series completed and get it out there into your hands. And that way, whenever you have friends over and they're like, "Well, what's GI Joe?" Oh, don't worry, I've got a book. Right.
Very cool. And that's a good point, actually, Roger. What's if people wanted to get volumes 1, 2, 3? What's the best bet to do that at the moment?
3 isn't out yet. Those will be added to our website when the Kickstarter is fulfilled. We're about 75% done, 80% done with that book, so it won't be too much longer before it goes to print. But right now, if you go to www.afteractionreport.net, net is the important part. That will get you to our website, and you can order the first 2 volumes there.
Excellent stuff. And Greg, from you, final thoughts?
I'm just, again, at the jump, I'm still kind of excited and overwhelmed that just sharing my Joe fandom. I mean, as I said, this is a project that since the ground zero, like 40 years in the making, pretty much. Yeah. Right. And it's one part sharing my enjoyment, appreciation of the brand, the character, the history, and putting it all in this one book, and also sharing that joy and excitement with Joe fans. It just got me really jazzed. And just being at kind of in the spotlight, it's really, really kind of exciting. And so fans listening to this and watching this podcast, thanks very much for supporting the project. I'm really jazzed that it's been well received, and let's make it happen.
Excellent. Yes, thanks so much for coming on, sharing your time, sharing your passion for your project. I hope it's a big success. So,
Mark, do I get to sing the outro?
Yeah, you certainly can, because Tim's not here. So what I would say typically here is that I think that is us done. But remember that
Nobody Beats Talking Joe, an international podcast.
That's it. Well, I think that's the first time that anyone apart from Tim has been brave enough to do that. So thank you so much, and catch you guys down the road. Laters.
Thanks, Mark.
Bye.
Have a good one.